All right, friends, let's continue with lesson 4 on predicting and inferring. So what is inferring? Characters do not always come right out and say what they are thinking or feeling. Instead, we can infer or figure out a character's thoughts or feelings based on things he or she says and does, or based on things other characters say about him or her. So readers look for clues in the text and pictures, as well as their own experiences or remember their background schema, background knowledge, to figure out more information about the character and the situation. So I want you to use clues from the pictures to make inferences about each picture below. So how do you think these people are feeling? What do you think is happening here? Go ahead and pause and think to yourself about that. Yeah, so maybe they're happy or they're winning a game. Maybe they've won a huge game. Something like that. What about number 2? How do you think that person feels or what's happening? What can you infer is happening? Yeah, that person's probably sad. So their ice cream's melting is what we can infer, maybe from the hot sun or just having it out too long. But I would be pretty sad if my ice cream cone was melting. And last but not least, look at number 3. Maybe this has happened at your house. Maybe your dog has gotten in your trash. So yeah, we can infer, like we just said, that the dog got into the trash, but we can't know if that's really true unless we read the book or really have more clues about that. So we can infer because the dog's standing there looking guilty that he did that. If I was that person, I would be kind of upset that I have to pick up trash now. So there's things we can infer just by looking at pictures. All right, so as we read the next couple chapters, we're going to be inferring how Ruby thinks, how she feels, and what she wonders. And we have to back that up with evidence. So that means we have to look in our text and put things there that prove why we're thinking this, that lead us to why we're thinking that. All right, so we are going to come together and read our book. We are going to read the chapters Guessing through Stella Helps. So if you have the book only, you may skip through this, or if you don't have the book, you have to read with me. So go ahead and start listening. And remember, I'm going to keep this slide up so you can think about what you need to be catching as I read. Guessing. Bob fears our new neighbor will be a giant cat with slitted eyes and coiled tail. But Stella says a truck will arrive this afternoon carrying a baby elephant. How do you know? I ask. I sample the air, but all I smell is caramel corn. I love caramel corn. I can hear her, Stella says. She's crying for her mother. I listen. I hear the cars charging past. I hear the snore of the sun bears in the wire domain. But I don't hear any elephants. You're just hoping, I say. Stella closes her eyes. No, she says softly. Not hoping. Not at all. My TV is off, so while we wait for the new neighbor, I ask Stella to tell us a story. Stella rubs her right foot against the wall. Her foot is swollen again, an ugly, deep red. If you're not feeling well, Stella, I say, you could take a nap and tell us a story later. I'm fine, she says, and she carefully shifts her weight. Tell us the Jambo story, I say. It's a favorite of mine, but I don't think Bob has ever heard it. Because she remembers everything, Stella knows many stories. I like colorful tales with black beginnings and stormy middles and cloudless blue sky endings. But any story will do. I'm not in a position to be picky. Once upon a time, Stella begins, there was a human boy. He was visiting a gorilla family at a place called a zoo. What's a zoo? Bob asks. He's a street-smart dog, but there's much he hasn't seen. A good zoo, Stella says, is a large domain, a wild cage, a safe place to be. It has room to roam and humans who don't hurt. She pauses, considering her words. A good zoo is how humans make amends. Stella moves a bit, groaning softly. The boy stood on the wall. She continues, watching, pointing, but he lost his balance and fell into the wild cage. Humans are clumsy, I interrupt. If only they would knuckle walk, they wouldn't topple so often. Stella nods. A good point, Ivan. In any case, the boy lay in a motionless heap while the humans gasped and cried. The silverback, whose name was Jambo, examined the boy as was his duty, while his troop watched from a safe distance. Jambo stroked the child gently. He smelled the boy's pain, and then he stood watch. When the boy awoke, his humans cried out, "Stay still! Don't move!" Because they were certain, humans are always certain about things, that Jambo would crush the boy's life from him. The boy moaned. The crowd waited, hushed, expecting the worst. Jambo led his troop away. Men came down on ropes and whisked the child to waiting arms. Was the boy all right? Bob asked. He wasn't hurt, Stella says, although I wouldn't be surprised if his parents hugged him many times that night in between their scoldings. Bob, who was chewing his tail, pauses, tilting his head. Is that a true story? I always tell the truth, Stella replies, although I sometimes confuse the facts. Lucky. I've heard the Jambo story many times. Stella says humans found it odd that the huge silverback didn't kill the boy. Why, I wonder why that was so surprising. The boy was young, scared, alone. He was, after all, just another great ape. Bob nudges me with his cold nose. Ivan, he says, why aren't you and Stella in the zoo? I look at Stella. She looks at me. She smiles sadly with her eyes just a little. The way only elephants can do. Just lucky, I guess, she said. Arrival. The new neighbor arrives after the 4 o'clock show. When the truck comes lumbering towards the parking lot, Bob scampers over to inform us. Bob always knows what's happening. He's a useful friend to have, especially when you can't leave your domain. With a groan, Mac lifts the sliding metal door near the food court, the place where deliveries are made. A big white truck is backing up to the door, belching smoke. When the driver opens the truck, I know that Stella was right. A baby elephant is inside. I see her trunk poking out from the blackness. I'm glad for Stella, but when I glance at her, I see she is not glad at all. Stand back, everyone, Mac yells. We've got a new arrival. This is Ruby, folks. 600 pounds of fun to save our sorry butts. This gal's gonna sell some tickets. Mac and 2 men climb into the black cave of the truck. We hear the noise scuffling, a word Mac uses when he's angry. Ruby makes a noise too, like one of the little trumpets they sell at the gift store. Move, Mac says. She's still there, but still there is no Ruby. Move, he says again. We haven't got all day. Inside her domain, Stella paces as much as she's able. 2 steps one way, 2 steps the other. She slaps her trunk against the rusty metal bars. She grumbles. Stella, I ask, did you hear the baby? Stella mutters something under her breath, a word she uses when she's angry. Relax, Stella, I say. It will be okay. Ivan, Stella says, it will never, ever be okay, and I know enough to stop talking. Stella helps. The men are still yelling. Some of the yelling is at each other, but most of it is at Ruby. We hear scrambling, pounding, shifting. The side of this truck shudders. I'm starting to like this elephant, Bob whispers. I'm getting the big one, Mac says. Maybe she can coax the stupid brat out of the truck. Mac opens Stella's door. Come on, girl, he urges. He unties the rope attached to the floor bolt. Stella pushes past Mac, nearly knocking him over. She rushes as best as she can, limping heavily, toward the open back of the truck. She catches her swollen foot on the edge of the ramp and winces. Blood trickles down. Halfway up the ramp, she pauses. The noise in the truck stops. Ruby falls silent. Slowly, Stella makes her way up the rest of the ramp. It groans under her weight, and I can tell how much she is hurting by the awkward way she moves. At the top of the incline, she stops. She pokes her trunk into the emptiness. We wait. The tiny gray truck appears again. Shyly it reaches out, tasting the air. Stella curls her own trunk around the babies. They make soft rumbling noises. We wait some more. A hush falls over the big over the entire Big Top Mall. Thud, thud. Step, step, pause. Step, step, pause. And there she is, so small she can fit underneath Stella with room to spare. Her skin sags, and she sways unsteadily as she makes her way down the ramp. Not the greatest specimen, Max says, but I got her cheap from the bankrupt circus out west. They had her shipped over from Africa. Only had her a month before they went bust. He gestures towards Ruby. Thing is, people love babies. Baby elephants, baby gorillas, heck, give me a baby alligator and I could make a killing. Stella ushers Ruby towards her domain. Mac and the two men follow. At Stella's door, Ruby hesitates. Mac gives Ruby a shove, but she doesn't budge. Doggone it, get a clue, Ruby, he mutters, but Ruby isn't moving, and neither is Stella. Mac grabs a broom. He raises it. Instantly, Stella steps in front of Ruby to shield her. Get in the cage, both of you, Mac shouts. Stella stares at Mac, considering, gently but firmly. Using her trunk, she nudges Ruby into her domain. Only then does Stella enter. Mac slams the door shut with a clang. I see two trucks intertwined. I hear Stella whispering. Poor kid, says Bob. Welcome to the X8 Big Top Mall and Video Arcade, home of the one and only Ivan. Alright, so those are our chapters today. So now I want you to turn to page 13 of your set. That is just like mine on the screen. So let's talk about this chart. So what do you think Ruby is thinking? Why won't she come out of the truck? Why won't Ruby come out of the truck? Yeah, I think Ruby thinks that she'll get hurt. That Mac will hurt her. And why are we thinking that? Why are we thinking that? He raises what at her? I want you to finish that. He raises what at her? How do you think Ruby feels? Is she happy? Is she sad? Is she scared or afraid? Fill in that. And why do you think that? Why do you think she's scared? What is she doing? She's not moving, is she? So I want you to think about how Ruby feels. And you need to fill in all of this that I'm filling in. And add to it. And what do you think Ruby is wondering about it? She's a baby. She got shipped from Africa to somewhere out west. And is now being shipped to the X8 Big Top Circus. So do you think she knows where she is? She's probably wondering where she is being taken. And why do we think that? Why do we think she's wondering where she's being taken? Is there a way she moves that kind of describes this for us? All right, so I want you to finish this for today. And I also want you to come down to your lesson check. Go ahead and do that for me. I'm going to take that as a participation grade. So, make sure we are doing our Ruby's arrival chart and our comprehension. And I think I'm going to stop there today. I don't want to make you do a whole bunch. So I can't wait to see what you think about how she feels and just all about Ruby, and maybe predict what might happen next. Maybe predict how she'll feel once she gets to know Stella or how she gets to know Ivan. So think about that and predict that. I can't wait to hear what you think in small group.